Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Halal Gap. I'm your co-host, Sofia Ali, and I'm joined by...
Sikandar, your other co-host.
And as always, the man behind the mic, Hamada, where you at?
What's up?
And today we are joined by someone who has won over everyone's hearts on this podcast.
Amazing. I kind of fanboyed a little bit during this taping, I will say.
I would agree.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to it, shall we?
Alrighty.
He is a WWE superstar and the first openly Muslim character in WWE history. He's been highlighted by National Geographic, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and many others, and has performed at WrestleMania and competes on SmackDown Live every week on Fox. He's a husband, a father, and a former cop with the goal to educate and inspire others with a story of breaking down barriers, shattering stereotypes, and erasing preconceived ideas associated with religion and ethnicity in media. Performing under the name Mustafa Ali, we are incredibly honored to have joining us today the one and only Adeel Alam.
What an introduction. I love it.
I really wanted to do like a ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, but I really wanted to do that, but I figured I'd keep it professional for you. No, but thank you so much for joining us, man. How have you been? How have you been spending a little bit more free time, I'd say?
Yeah, it's I know it's weird for a lot of people, but it's really weird for me. Like I see my kids every day, and obviously it's a great thing, but I'm not used to it, and they're not used to it. And my daughter keeps saying, like, when are you going to go back home? When are you going to go back to work? It's like every day I wake up and you're here. It's kind of weird. So no, obviously with everything that's going on, it's, there's a lot of bad stuff that come with it. But the one gleaming positive is that I am spending so much time with my two kids. My daughter's Amara, she's 6, and my son Rayan, he's 2. He'll be turning 3 soon. And I get to spend all day with them, everything from diaper changes to homeschooling to playing on the trampoline, like all the stuff that I missed out on being on the road as a professional wrestler for 365 days a year. There would be stretches where I'd go almost 32, 34 days, I think is my record of not being home.
Wow.
Days in a row. Yeah. And it sucks, man. It sucks watching your kids grow up over FaceTime, and the one positive that I'm taking from this pandemic is that, I get to actually be home with the ones I love the most.
That's a good attitude. So tell us about your wrestling journey. Like, what got you started? What were your inspirations?
It's such a cliche story, but wild in the same aspect. Lifelong fan. I've been watching ever since I could remember. My father, who's no longer with us, he was my first introduction to wrestling. I'd walk into the living room, and I must have been like 4 or 5 years old. And he's watching Saturday Morning Superstars, and on the screen is this guy wearing pink tights named Bret the Hitman Hart, and
Alberta's own.
Yeah, and my dad just he scoops me up and he puts me on his lap, and I'm watching, and I was hooked since that day. And I can remember just that like life revolved around that. Like when Monday Night Raw would be on, when Superstars would be on, I'd watch all the specials, and I would go to Blockbuster and plead with my parents to let me rent, like the pay-per-views that would come out on Coliseum Home Video. I was just like the diehard fan, the posters on the wall, like wrestling was my life. And my introduction into the world of pro wrestling came from actually doing a high school presentation. I was 16 years old at the time, and I stand up in front of the class, and we're all doing presentations about what you want to be, or what difference you want to make in the world, or something like that. And I kind of said that I want to be like a world champion in WWE. And obviously, kids are going to snicker and laugh because I'm 5'0" and like 100 pounds barely. I was a really small kid growing up. And one of my classmates approached me after the presentation and said, "Hey, my brother wrestles professionally. So if you ever wanted to like find out, like try out, so to speak, I could introduce you." And I was like, "Please, yes." So I go to this tryout. I'm 16 years old. Everybody is, in their 20s. They're jacked, muscular, and they're like, "Who is this small Daisy kid that comes in?" But I don't know if it's just because I was such a fan and so obsessed with it. I did the tryout, and I was almost like better than some of the guys that had been training there for like a couple months. So they immediately like saw potential in me. They go, okay, you're definitely like, small, like super, super small, but like we can work with you. So they accepted me into like their organization. And for anybody that doesn't understand how like the world of pro wrestling works, I kind of compare it to like the music scene. You're kind of like this independent band, and you go to these really small shows. So you play at like small festivals, small bars, whatever gigs you can get, so to speak. And there's literally no money or very little money when you start out, but you basically just bounce around city to city, state to state, sometimes, even traveling internationally. But you don't make a big living off of wrestling when you start. It's definitely a lot of sacrifice, a lot of nights sleeping in a car because you can't afford to buy a hotel that night, just to get exposure, just to get like, some reps in and whatnot. So that was my introduction into wrestling. It was just a tryout that I got recommended to do from a classmate. And then that started my journey.
That's amazing. Yeah, you touched on this, but the development journey for wrestling compared to other sports is obviously, like you said, not formulaic at all, right? And I think maybe like fighting with my family might have been the first time people at like more of a mainstream level kind of got a bit of a peek behind the scenes, maybe a little. But
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was that? What was that process like for you in terms of getting noticed by the WWE? Was it a matter of just continually doing the circuit until they came to you, or what was
Yeah,
that like?
my story is unique to me because of the unique position that I'm in. So everybody that's in WWE that's been a lifelong fan, it basically has the same story, right? They got interest, they started on the independent wrestling circuit, and they eventually move up. Some people move up within months. Some people are like me. I wrestled, I would say, almost 15 years before I got signed to WWE. And, it's not playing the race card, but the problem was I had a lot of internal conflicts going on. So the first decision that I had to make immediately, as soon as I entered this world, I'm training, everything is going good. And you gotta realize that I'm a kid that's coming in, very bright eyed, and everything is gold. Everything is great. I'm getting to live my dream. And I love like the high flyers, like the wrestlers that jump off the top rope and do all these crazy flips, and people chant for them, and they wear their t-shirts and make signs for them. Like, that's what I wanted. That's all that I've envisioned. But when we sit down to discuss this character, they're like, oh, no, you can't be a good guy. And I go, well, why? They go, well, you're a Muslim. No one's going to cheer a Muslim. And I just remember being devastated. I go, well, why would anybody care that I'm a Muslim? Like, I can do all these incredible moves. I can do a double backflip and land on my feet. Like, I'm sure that people will cheer for me. They go, no, listen, you can pour your heart out there, and you can break your body, and you can do anything. They'll never cheer for you. Your name is Adeel, and you're a Muslim. You have to be a bad guy. And I remember being very conflicted with it. And I wasn't, I didn't put my foot down for ethics or for like morale. I did it because I was a kid that was in love with pro wrestling, and I said, no, I know I could be a good guy, and I want to wrestle this style. What if I wore a mask and I pretended to be something that I'm not? Like, what if I pretended to be of Hispanic heritage? So for those that watch wrestling, they know a big popular form of wrestling is called lucha libre, and it's a style that's been created in Mexico. So my first, I want to say 4 or 5 years, I pretended to be something I was not. I pretended to be a luchador. They gave me a Hispanic name, and I said that I was from, I forgot where I was from, but they tried to pass me off as someone of Hispanic origin. And I had like very like, like, I don't know how to describe it, not great success, very like, okay, like I was good on the
Like
local scene. I was
mediocre.
in
Yeah.
the Midwest. Yeah, but I definitely wasn't like bursting out of the bubble. And it's all kind of fate, man. Like one day I was doing this really, really dangerous stunt, and the opponent that I was working with kind of bailed on me, and I collapsed outside the ring, and I ended up breaking my wrist. And the break was so bad that they put me in a full arm cast. So I had a cast from my wrist up to almost like the top of my tricep.
Wow.
So I was immobilized for like 6 months because of this stupid cast. And it was at that point I was like, man, like, and everyone's talking to me like, yo, man, like you should really consider this bad guy character when you come back. Like, you should basically portray a terrorist. And anybody that, again, that's watched WWE or pro wrestling in the past knows that anyone of Middle Eastern or Southeast Asian or quote unquote Arabic background, they're always the bad guy. It's just how it's always been. And it's easy. That's the thing. It's easy. You come out, you have a difficult name, you look the way you look, they're going to chant USA. They're going to cheer your opponent. And the thing is, you're successful. And it's something that I'm not proud about. I caved in. I said, you know what? I want this so bad. And I tried it the other way and I failed. So after I came back from injury, I came back as Prince Mustafa Ali, this evil prince from Saudi Arabia that was here to do harm to America. And man, my career skyrocketed. I started getting flown out all over the country. My booking rate quadrupled. I was busy, I was torn, and that was the first time, lo and behold, that WWE became aware of me. And a few years into that, I actually had a tryout with them. And this is at a weird stage for WWE where they were trying out a lot of people, and a lot of people weren't getting accepted. But they were just trying to get a feel for what the scene was out there. So I was one of those people that came and tried out. And this is around 2013, and I was rejected at the tryout. They said, "Hey, we're just not interested in you right now, but come back maybe, and we'll figure it out."
And did you try out as Prince Mustafa Ali or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I went in there, and I know that I did everything right, and the people that did the tryout years later, now I work with them, and they go, "Yeah, we remember you. You were great. You didn't have the look that we were looking for at that time." And because at that time in the early 2000s, it was still a big body guy business. If you weren't 6'5", 280 with a six pack, the chance of you getting hired was very, very small. Right after my tryout is when the business started changing. Smaller guys were getting opportunities again. And now if you look at the landscape today, the average wrestler is about 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, which is a dramatic decrease from what it was. But yeah, one of the main reasons that I didn't get the job back in 2013 is because I was a foot shorter and about 100 pounds too light,
Right.
So yeah, then I went back on the independent circuit, and I'm trying to find my way in life, and everything's happening at once. My father passes away. My mom's on me about getting married. I'm accumulating a lot of injuries with this crazy schedule. And mind you, while I'm doing this professional wrestling gig, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm working a full-time job Monday through Friday, So it was a lot.
As a police officer, right? Yeah.
At this time, I wasn't a police officer.
Oh, okay.
At this time, I was a marketing coordinator. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I went to school and I got a major in marketing and finance. I went on to work as a marketing coordinator during this time. And it was a culmination of a lot of things. I ended up leaving wrestling for a little bit because I had fractured kneecaps. Oof. And at the exact same time, I met my wife, and we'll be married 10 years now, coming up in January. So I meet my wife around this time, and we're just discussing life. And I was like, I don't think wrestling's for me. So I kind of leave it, and I'm trying to rehab these injuries and whatnot. And it kind of daunted to me. I was like, hey, I kind of want to go back and right my wrongs. I'm really disgusted that I did this character, Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the day. It was in Oak Forest, Illinois, and I'm still performing as Prince Mustafa Ali at this time. I'm just, I'm still doing this character because I need these bookings. And I remember being outside the ring, and there was this kid. He was blonde hair, blue eyes. He must have been 6, 7 years old. And I remember making eye contact with him, looking directly into his eyes, and I saw pure hatred. Not haha, I'm in it, I get it, this is all fake and this is an act. No, he hated what he was saying, and I don't know how or why, but through his eyes, it communicated. I realized that I just taught this kid to hate Muslims. I know I did. I saw it in his eyes, and I was like, "What are you doing? This isn't worth it." And it was that day that I changed everything. I came backstage after the match. I told the promoter, I was like, "I don't care what happens. I'm not doing this character anymore, and you can't talk me out of it." And I paid the price, man. My career pretty much tanked. People stopped booking me. I stopped getting flown out. The money basically disappeared. But I stayed true to like what I wanted to do, and I just came back as Mustafa Ali, this pure technician, this high flyer, this guy that can perform in the ring. And he basically came out saying, I refuse to be what you want me to be. Like, you guys have these preconceived ideas. You want me to be the guy that wears something on my head and yells something in Arabic and wishes death upon America. I'm not doing any of that, you know?
Mhm.
And yeah, it was a very rough, long process. But eventually I won these fans over. The same fans that would boo me, and wish death upon me and throw popcorn and beer on me. They're now like, man, this guy is like performing his heart out, and he's kind of telling the truth. And it wasn't an overnight thing. It was like I literally had to restart my career all over again. And this is well into my career, and it worked. I just kept true to the grind, and despite being married and then becoming a police officer and keeping up with my independent wrestling appearances, and then I had my first child, I kept grinding at this dream, and eventually WWE provided an opportunity again. I went out and performed, and a few months later, they called back and said, we would like to sign you to a full-time deal.
Wow. That's incredible.
You kind of talk about how, you saw hate in that kid's eyes, and like you were, like, because that was the situation you were in and that's where the money was, you were kind of furthering that stereotype. Can you talk a little bit more about like why you think that's what sells, and like how your decision to then change it, like what positive change you've seen from that?
I think not just with wrestling, but in any form of media, the idea is to communicate an idea in the most direct, simplified way. Because, like, yeah, there's some intellectual people out there. There's some people that they crave an indirect story, like they want to be taken on a journey. But the mass audience, they would like. We're a society that consumes so much information, so much entertainment, that sometimes it's just like present the idea, get in and get out. And this idea of the brown guy or the Muslim guy is the bad guy, it's history, So it's such an easy story to tell. Now, when a guy named Mustafa Ali comes out and says, no, I'm actually from Chicago, and I love apple pie just like you. They go, no, that's not what I'm told on the news. That's not what I'm told through media. That's not what Hollywood movies tell me, that someone that looks like you is here to like blow the place up. So now you're going against their ideology, what they understand. So that's so much more harder. So that's why all these initial promoters that I worked for, and why initially when I broke into the wrestling scene, they didn't want to invest the time or effort in it because it's so hard. And I know it's true. I'm the one that fought that battle. It is hard. You can, I probably sound a little egotistical here, and I understand that, but like I know how good I am in the ring, and I can perform my heart out. But there's still that one guy that just has to say, "Go back to your country," and then the whole crowd jumps on with him, and then that becomes the theme of the match of them yelling, "Go back to your country." So sometimes it's almost impossible. Like you can't win these people over. And to answer your question, like that's why it's what they've seen everywhere from the Iron Sheik to Muhammad Hassan, who are popular wrestlers from the past, all the way to any major movie back in the day. It's
Totally.
who's the bad guy? It's the brown guy.
Yeah.
So we're trying to battle years and years and years of this ideology that if you resemble a Muslim, you're a bad guy.
And so do you feel like it's gotten a little better? Like arguably the world is woker now. Is it better, or is it kind of the same?
No, I think it's definitely better. I think I don't know how genuine it is as far as it being better. I feel like people are aware of political correctness and being called out now, and like you don't want to be trending on Twitter because people know you're a racist. So I think people know. I think people know better now to be so open and public about it. But at the same time, like I do believe there's far more good than evil in this world. I genuinely believe that. I take great pride and passion in what I'm doing right now, because there are people that have come up to me that said, man, I follow you on Instagram, and like I never understood like why Muslim women wear that scarf on their head, but I saw you guys take a picture on July 4th and you and your kids had the little sparklers. And he goes, man, it just dawned on me, you guys are just normal Americans. And like, that's the goal. That's everything. That's the reason why I'm breaking bones and I'm traveling all these miles and I'm putting in all this work. It's to normalize Muslims. I want people to go, oh, yeah, I know a Muslim guy named, because some of these people, they don't have a Muslim friend. They see one guy, that they work with that they don't talk to because they're scared of him. But now when they see me and my daughter eating cookies on Instagram and, her making a joke about me, they go, oh, my kid does that too. That's the end all be all goal, is to normalize Muslims, because we don't fear what we we only fear what we don't understand. Right. But if you can relate and you can understand that there's no difference between Muslims and others, we've eliminated that fear. But yeah, again, to answer your question, I think it's way better. It's not as open as it was before, but I'd be a fool to tell you that I've never experienced it and I don't experience it to this day. I believe that I perform on a worldwide audience, excuse me. And it would be foolish of me to believe that performing under the name Mustafa Ali does not come with extreme hardships. There's still many more mountains to climb, many more walls to knock down, but I'm willing to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, it takes people like yourself to do exactly that, right? I mean, put yourself out there in a global scale with that very obvious symbol of your faith as your name and your performance name. I mean, it is exactly that. And I mean, it's incredibly commendable. I want to take a step back into, a little bit more about your upbringing. You recently told a really beautiful story about how building a trampoline for your daughter reminded you of how your dad built you a wrestling ring as a child. Coming from like South Asian Muslim family, we hear a lot from creatives who we've had on this show and, internally, that is sometimes a struggle with, the community and your family in pursuing a creative endeavor. Was your family always supportive of your aspirations? How did that go?
It's it's not that it's a complicated question, but it always makes me smile because it's Desi parents, man. They're all over the place. Yeah, the trampoline thing really got to me. My mom called me after I did that post, and she was like, "You made me cry because now I'm thinking about dad," and like she was kind of like yelling at me about it. But
Man, you almost made me cry. I never met your dad.
yeah. But yeah, for those that don't know what we're talking about, I basically assembled a trampoline for my daughter, and I had posted a video on my Instagram, basically taking a walk down memory lane about how the first time I got a trampoline, I tried to build a wrestling ring out of it. I put up like these 4 wooden posts, and I was like 13, 14 years old trying to build this ring, and basically the entire thing collapsed on me. And I was so dejected and I felt terrible, and my brothers were making fun of me about it. And my dad comes home from work and he's like, "What is this mess in the backyard? What were you doing?" And he's like, "Were you trying to build a wrestling ring?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was so embarrassed about it because like the whole family's making fun of me. Then the next day I go to school, and when I come back, my dad had cemented the ring posts next to the trampoline, and he got garden hose and like drilled it in for me. He basically made me a wrestling ring. So I was telling everybody that story because I just got a trampoline for my daughter because she quotes and quotes she wants to wrestle. That's how she says it. So now she's starting her training at the age of 6. But as far as like my parents involved with it, they saw how crazy I was about it, and I don't know if they thought that I would go through with it, like to become a professional. I'm sure like most parents, they thought, oh, they're just going through a phase. But they were always like okay and cool with it. But like obviously like any set of Desi parents, they're like education. Like you have to get your education. You have to go to college. You have to get a job. There's no argument there. Like you have to go. I'm like, all right, cool. Just let me go do this on the weekends. But yeah, at the same time, they weren't like they never came to a show. You know what I mean? Like they never watched any of my matches live. And it wasn't something that hurt me. It wasn't like, oh man, my parents. It was like an agreement. Like, hey, we'll let you do this, but like it's on your own time. Like you can go through this phase. But yeah, like obviously the community wasn't like a big fan of it. Like my mom and my dad were very like instrumental in the Muslim community in the suburb that I grew up in. Like they helped open up the first masjid in our area, so they were involved with it. And, all these aunties and uncles would come and basically talk crap about it. Like, oh, we heard your son's wrestling. Like, what is this? But, it's but the knees, this and that. Like, aren't you guys embarrassed about it? And, they would just be like, oh, he's just, he's going through a phase. He's going through a phase. He'll grow out of it. But yeah, they were always pretty cool and supportive. It's funny though, those same Desi aunties and uncles now, they're like my biggest fans. Like anytime I see them, they're like, "Oh, Adeel, come take a picture." When you were
Yeah.
a kid, I always used to say you were gonna make it. I was like,
Yeah.
no, you didn't. You were lying. But like, yeah, and then the aunties were like, "Oh, like take a picture with me," and I'll stand next to them. They go, "No, no, Adeel, put your arm around me." I was like, "Oh, auntie, like." So yeah,
I didn't know
it's
we were
pretty
close
wild,
like
like
that.
the 180 that they'll do. But dude, man, my parents were very cool. They were very they let me spread my wings. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
never they kept me grounded in some aspects, but at the same time they definitely let me spread my wings. And I know I keep talking about my dad and my mom a lot, but like they're very very influential. Like I've never seen two harder working people. Like their life wasn't easy when they came over. Like I saw my dad had like multiple jobs, you know what I mean? And I tell everybody that the man literally worked himself to death to provide for his three boys and his wife. And I always go back to him and I was like, man, like the stuff that he like people are like, oh man, your schedule must be crazy. You work hard. And I was like, I'm not even in the same area as my dad. So yeah, is it like they were very supportive, and I grew up in a very loving household. But at the same time, again, they weren't like in the stands, like cheering
Right,
me on.
right. Yeah, they keep you grounded, but also show you what it takes to work hard to get to where you want to be, but from a distance sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have gone. I mean, as you've mentioned, it's not a path that is entirely able to be solely relied on from like a professional standpoint, like becoming a professional wrestler. So you've had to supplement that with some other jobs and careers. You mentioned you were a marketing coordinator, and you were also a police officer for a number of years. Like, how did that happen? How did you join the police force, and did
Yeah,
that experience help you at all in your wrestling career? I mean, I guess they're both physically demanding roles, but what's the link there?
yeah. My poor wife. When I met her, I was a marketing coordinator that wasn't wrestling, And then it's like, oh, then I'm going to become a cop, and then hey, by the way, I'm going to go work for WWE and never be home. So yeah,
Yeah,
she looked out real good, huh? Uh, yeah, before I like dive into the whole how I became a cop story, I thought it was always like, especially with such a new audience and vast audience that you guys, I think a very important thing that I can communicate to everybody. There's a lot of people listening to this podcast right now that they're chasing their own dream right now. You've got a kid right now listening that wants to be a musician, or he wants to be whatever, or you have a girl that wants to go into a certain profession. Like everyone's chasing a dream right now. We always hear about these celebrities or these stars that, like, you know what, one day I decided that I was going to be a musician and I just packed up everything in my car and I hit the road, and no matter what, I'm going to make it. And then you hear about how they slept in their car and how they struggled, but then they made it. We always hear about those stories. What we don't hear about is those that didn't make it, right? Like how not chasing a proper education, how not having a professional background ended up, you know, costing them later in life when their dreams collapse.
Mm.
I hope I don't sound too old or like a dad right now, but like you have to chase your dreams responsibly. I understand that it took
totally
me
true.
a really long time to get to WWE, but at no point during my chase was I ever dependent on somebody. Like I could pay for my own meal, you know what I mean? And if I could buy my own clothes. Like I never had to borrow money or crash with somebody or rely on somebody. Like I had my own car, because I worked. I still worked, and like yeah, you have a lot of sleepless nights, and yeah, you're hurting, and you don't have much of a social life. But I feel like I did it the right way because I'm able to take care of my parents the entire time that I was able to take care of my parents. So yeah, not to sound too preachy, but
No,
please,
no, no.
please, if you're gonna chase responsibly.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think that you're right. We kind of hear a lot of fairy tale stories, but I think we don't often hear about the grit and hard work that goes into it. So I think that's really, really valuable.
Well, and also recognizing, follow your dreams, but put food on the table first, right? I mean,
Yeah, but the cop stuff was like, yeah, I have a friend named Jason who was a wrestling buddy. He was also on the independent wrestling circuit, and he was kind of like in and out of wrestling too. Because after a while, you're on the independent circuit for so long. You're on there for like 10 years, and nothing's really happening. Um, he became a police officer, and while I was talking to him, he's like, "Hey, Adeel, I know you. I know your morals. I know what you believe in. I really think you'll find what you're looking for in this." He's like, "You get to help people every day. You're in there. He's like, there's not a boring day." And he's like, I think you'll find it very fulfilling. And I always, and again, I hope, please like hear me out on here. I understand what the perception is of police in today's society, right? Like we see what we see on the news. Everyone is aware that there's a huge distrust between police and the people, as there should be, right? There's been plenty of wrongdoings. But it was always my belief that the profession itself, at its core, was actually a very noble profession. Like if you were a good police officer, a true police officer, like you're putting your life on the line to protect others. At its core, like there's nothing more noble than that. So I always had this kind of a weird, like I don't want to call it appreciation, but this acknowledgement of like, yeah, that's a hard job and it's a meaningful job. So I began like the testing process, just kind of seeing what would happen, and eventually I did land a job. It's a town called Homewood. That's a little ways out from Chicago. Not the best town, but not the worst town either. We had a highway that runs through right outside the town called Cocaine Highway. So you can imagine how much drug trafficking was happening in that area. So yeah, like everyone. The cop stuff was kind of funny because when they hired me, I didn't really confess to them or like let them know that I was also wrestling on the side. So it's kind of a funny story because I would work the midnight shift. So the midnight shift, you have to be at roll call at 11 p.m. So all the officers are in this room at 11 p.m. and the chief tells you, or the sergeant, whoever's in charge that night, tells you what the duties are, what we need to accomplish. So you work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I was still wrestling on the side, and I never told the police department that I was still wrestling. So I would be at a show that's an hour away at 9 p.m. wrestling, I would finish up at 9:30 p.m., and I'd be covered in sweat. But the show I'm at doesn't have a shower because we're at some bar. So I don't have a shower. So I towel off. I throw sweatpants on. I drive the hour plus to work. I change into my police uniform and I run upstairs at like 10:59 p.m. I would slide into my chair. And this happened every day. And I'm the new guy, And then they started noticing, they're like, why does he always have these weird scratches by his face? Why is he always sweaty? Why is he out of breath? And then one day I came with like a black eye. And my sergeant's like, that's it, I've had enough. He slams the table. He's like, Alam, what's your deal? And I was like, what do you mean, sir? He goes, you always show up to roll call at the last minute. You're sweaty. You smell. You've got scratches on your face, and now you've got a black eye. What are you doing before you come here? And I don't know why I panicked. I didn't want to tell him I was a pro wrestler because I thought, whatever. So very sheepishly, I like barely looked up at it. I go, sir, I'm learning how to box. He goes, what? I go, yeah, I'm learning how to box. And he gets really, really close up to my face, and he's like, well, judging by the look on your face, you must be a real shitty boxer. And I was like, yeah, I'm the worst. I get beat up all the time. He's like, put your hands up next time, and he walks away. But yeah, I don't know why. I just couldn't tell them. But yeah, being a cop was wild, man. I got 1,000,001 stories. But I like to tell people one thing about being a police officer. They want to hear about like guns and chasing bad guys. The number one thing I took away from being a police officer was I learned empathy. I met people that I would not have normally met in my circle, right? I've met people that are drug addicts. I've met people that have been forced into prostitution. I've met domestic abuse survivors and victims. I've met people with psychological needs. I've met the worst of people, and I've met the best of people. And I fully believe I would not have met those people or have this understanding of empathy if I didn't have this police experience. Like you see this kid that got busted for selling dope, and he broke someone's jaw, and now he's arrested. And most people treat him like garbage. They're calling him a punk or whatever like that. But when you sit and you're talking to this quote unquote criminal, you find out about his grueling hardship growing up, about how he didn't have a father, how his mother was sick, how he was trying to apply for jobs, but he got arrested when he was 16 for a carjacking that he didn't do. Like you find out these complicated stories, and you at the core of it, you find out this guy was just trying to put food on the table to feed his family. So you get this overwhelming sense of empathy that you would not have gotten anywhere else. Like I'm sitting across the table from someone as they pour their heart out to me about why they did the most terrible thing that they've ever done in their life. And you get this understanding of empathy. Like, yeah, man, like, I don't think we're born evil. Like very rarely do people come to this world, with evil in their heart. It's a reaction. It's an adaptation. It's them trying to survive. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest experience that I've taken away from my. I was a police officer for about 4 years, but yeah, it's empathy.
That's awesome. So I don't know how to do this well, but we're gonna hairpin turn from that really amazing, incredible, heartfelt story.
We're about to take a dip, aren't we? I'm excited.
We are into some place weird. I was gonna say, like, your look that you wrestle with is like pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Do you have a lot of say in that? Like,
that is a massive pivot.
Well, I was gonna ask, like, are there links? Like, did you in the uniform? Like, did you take that, or like, I don't know.
No, it's a spot on question. It really is. It's a spot on question because I've gone through some changes with my costumes, let's call them. But at one point, I was wearing like this vest to the ring. It was like an entrance jacket, and over my heart, it has a circle of LED lights that lights up, and it simulates a heartbeat. And a lot of people didn't understand the reference about why I wore the jacket. And I told them, I said, when I put on this jacket, it reminds me of the bulletproof vest that I used to wear as a cop.
And there's a tie.
Yes. I knew it.
Every time I put on that bulletproof vest as a cop, I would tell myself, I said, hey, today is a day where you could die. So just remember what you're doing. Like be aware. So when I put this wrestling jacket on, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, like, wake up! You're about to go to war because there's another man in the ring that could hurt you. So like, wake up, because the problem is with anything, I think once it's repetitious, you kind of like you relax a little and you kind of go through the motions. It's like, no, it's something about putting that jacket on, pulling that bulletproof vest on that wakes me up. It says, no, like all your senses need to be firing. You need to be on your toes because you're going into a dangerous place.
Yeah,
nice.
Wow.
That's very cool.
That's not a bad question at all.
Thank you for making
that was actually a very good question.
Don't worry, I'll pull you out of this one. Don't worry.
It is a very unique look, though. I mean, with the lights and with the mask and the kind of the hand Iron Man light situation. Like, what was the inspiration behind all the lights? I mean, I know you said like the heartbeat, but
yeah, it's all adaptation. So obviously, when I get to WWE, they approached me with the same character that we talked about me trying to avoid. They said, hey, we think you could be this bad guy. We'll build you from Pakistan. We'll do this. And I said, hey, listen, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And I laid out the groundwork for Mustafa Ali. I was like, he's this, he's your everyday Muslim friend. He's smiling. He's cracking jokes. And the problem with the thing is, I don't want to call it cookie cutter, but when you try to be too basic, no one's really interested in it, right? They go, okay, he's Mustafa Ali and he's a happy guy. He's kind of happy to be here and he can do a couple cool moves, but like, it's very hard to write stories about that guy. People love conflict, like that's where I'm in the business that thrives on conflict. They want to see two people that don't get along clash. So I'm trying to push these metaphors, and I would do these promos, and I would say openly, I said, hey, I'm here to fight discrimination and racism and prejudice. And they would be like, whoa, cut. You can't say that. I go, no, that's what my character is about. They go, we understand what your character is about, but you can't physically say those words on our programming. It's a no-no. So it's not about the context, about this. It's just you can't say those words. So now I'm in this dilemma of okay, well, how do I preach? How do I talk about my character without using these key words? So they said you need to like think about symbolism, like make a reference to it. So I was like, okay. So I thought about it. I said, well, everyone understands the difference of light versus dark, right? Like dark meaning bad or evil, and light being positive and fighting. So I kept playing with this concept. I said, oh, what if I was the light of the WWE? Like, no matter what the bad situation is, I would shine a light on that. The idea itself kind of morphed into this. Okay, what if I become the physical embodiment of the light? Because you always need like a moniker, a catchphrase, something that people go, oh, that's the guy. So right now, wrestling fans would go, oh, Mustafa Ali, that's the guy that wears the light up mask. That's the guy that wears the light up glove. That's the guy that comes out with all the lights. So now the word light is associated with me. And now fans that have been following me, they understand what I mean about when I say, hey, I fight for the light. They go, oh, he's fighting against discrimination and racism and prejudice. The words that I can't say now have become synonymous with the word light. So it was kind of my way of going through the back door, so to speak. Okay, if I can't say these words, let me come up with a different way to articulate it.
That's so cool. See,
I'm
guys,
trying.
the uniform. There was deep meaning there.
All about the uniform.
I mean, it's all symbolism at the end of the day, right? WWE. That's why it's so appealing. Everything about it's all symbolism. So I mean,
100%. I call it it's live action Broadway. Like the crowd dictates way more than they think they know. And because the thing is, if we get a script and they say, hey, we're going this direction, but the crowd is not feeling it, we have to be able to adapt on the fly on national TV. Wow. With 2-3 million people watching at home. So it's a high pressure situation. But yeah, it's I think it's the greatest art form in the world today.
I mean, I don't know how much you can or cannot say about that, but I think it's a common misconception that people have, which is, oh, this is all scripted. It's all played out from beforehand. So, I think people don't give it enough credit. How much influence do you guys have in the ring there?
A lot and not a lot. It just depends on the situation. So regarding it being like scripted, yeah, it's 2020. Like no one's gonna sit here and grab you by the neck and be like, no, you punk, wrestling's real. It's not real. It is it's a TV show. It's a 2-hour slot. We have to get X amount of matches and we have to get these stories across in a 2-hour program. It's just how it is. What I tell people is, hey, when you go watch Mission Impossible, you do know Tom Cruise is not really a secret agent, right? And he's not really hanging off the airplane, but you enjoy the movie because you suspend your disbelief for 2 hours and you watch this movie. And the other analogy that I always compare wrestling to is like when you watch a Hollywood movie and you see this motorcycle stunt guy. He goes up a ramp and he clears 3 or 4 cars and an explosion goes off and he lands it. There's a guy really on the motorcycle it's a real stunt. A lot of things can go wrong. Yeah, it's planned. Like he knows where he's going to land and what speed he's going to take off on. And it's all choreographed, but doesn't really make it fake. Like I think that's the word that bugs a lot of people like me as far as pro wrestlers. Like I've had numerous concussions, broken bones, stitches. And then it's like, well, if it's fake, how am I getting hurt? It's not fake. It is choreographed. It is scripted. We go in there understanding what the outcome is going to be. Because we need to be able to tell a certain story, right? If they're promoting one guy to become the next champion, you need to make sure that guy is presented in a certain way. You can't just go out there and make it up sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what the misconception is. People think it's fake. I wouldn't call it fake. It's definitely choreographed, but it's the hardest art form in the world because you have so many bullet points you need to address in such a short time. With today's society, especially, we become bored of something very, very quick. Like on to the next subject, on to the next subject, on to the next. Even people listening to the podcast, they don't want us talking for 25 minutes about me just being a cop. Like they go, okay, he was a cop for talk about it for 4 minutes and then move on to the next thing. It's the same thing with a wrestling match. We can't have these 25, 35-minute great matches anymore because people want the next thing quickly. So we have so many bullet points from a script that we need to get across, and it's like in 6 minutes sometimes. Wow. And you have a live audience that is dictating the pace of that sometimes. Sometimes they're not digesting it. Sometimes they're already ambitious and they want to see high flying. Surprise, surprise, when I performed in Boston one time, we had this very technical match, and it was going well, but it was Boston, and people were drunk, and they just wanted to see a fist fight. They just wanted to see us fight. And I looked at my opponent and said, we just got to start beating the crap out of each other. And that's what we did. We just changed everything on the fly and started beating the crap out of each other. But you have to be able to do that because the live audience is dictating what they want.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
incredible. I mean, I literally cannot think of anything other than wrestling which would be that way. Like maybe improv theater. I don't even
A
like,
lot of people compare it to Broadway. I said, well, Broadway,
but Broadway doesn't have that ability to change the script so much on
exactly,
the fly. Yeah,
exactly. Well, wrestling has a little bit more elbow room, I would say.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, following up on that, you've had a chance to now compete in what I mean, I would consider wrestling's ultimate showdown, WrestleMania.
Yeah.
How, like, what can you even attempt to describe what that feeling was like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always try to communicate what's really unique to me. So if you talk to any wrestler, they'll tell you, it's a lifelong dream. It's the biggest show that you'll ever compete on. The one that I got to compete on in a high profile match was WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans, and it was. I kept thinking, I was like, man, I'm gonna wake up at some point, and it was the only time ever. And again, I've been wrestling for a very, very long time. I'm 34 now. I've been wrestling since I was 16, so I've been at it for a while. It was the only time that right before I went out, I felt like, man, my heart is beating a little too fast. Like I'm about to have a panic attack. I'm about to collect. And I'm usually kind of like Cool Hand Luke, like I'm calm and composed. I'm usually like calming the other guys down, like, oh, don't worry about it. I got you. I'll take care of you. Everything will be fine. Like that's what I'm known for, and I just couldn't catch my breath. I don't know how to describe it. It's the only time in my entire life I've had the sensation where I was like, hey, I can't breathe. My heartbeat is not slowing down, and I'm very, very fortunate that one of the referees there, his name is Jason Ayers, a lifelong friend of mine, very close. He saw me because he saw that look in my eye, and he just grabbed me. He's like, all right, talk to me. What's going on? I was like, I don't think I can do this. And like a nice slap across the face to wake me up. And he's like, go out there and show the world what your name, who you are, and knock this off. It's go time. It's showtime. And if he didn't slap me, man, if he didn't wake me up, I probably would have had a disastrous night. So I really owe him a lot. But the coolest thing about WrestleMania, I had this, long ramp you have to walk down, and there's like 80,000 people screaming, and like 5 million people are watching at home. All those crazy stats. Out of all that stuff, the match starts. It's going well. There was a point in the match where me and my opponent, Cedric Alexander, were both laying on the mat, and I remember like looking up. And what happens at WrestleMania is they have these giant screen graphics that show up, and they show you what match is on. So I just remember looking up, and I saw this giant screen with my face and my name, and I just kept reading it. I was like, Mustafa Ali. I was like, dude, there's like 30 million people right now reading your name. Mustafa, and I kept saying my name. I was like, that's pretty cool. And I remember this mid match. I'm looking up at the lights, going, oh, my name's up there. That's pretty cool. And like that was like the peak moment of my entire wrestling career. Like I've got to wrestle some of the greatest people, like Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton on pay per view. But that moment of looking up and seeing my name on front and center during the biggest show, it was like. I don't know, almost I don't want to use the word justification, but it just felt right. It felt like, okay, I've made it past. I'm at this new level. Like my dream has been achieved in some sense. But yeah, that was the coolest moment for me, is at WrestleMania, seeing my name in giant lights.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
That's
And I
so
mean,
cool.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Sophia.
No, I was just gonna say to redeem myself with a better question.
It was a great question. Why are you doing this to yourself?
No, it actually was. It was great. It was great.
So along with some like really incredible highs, just like the one you described, you've also had some unfortunate lows, including injuries. And you already talked about one, but you also did have an injury that kept you out of the competition for the Elimination Chamber for that WWE title last year. So how have you been able to stay like level, and how have you been able to stay focused and motivated throughout all of that, given how hard you've had to work to get where you are?
Man, the injury is something that well, I hope it doesn't define my career. Anybody that's a fan of mine is aware of like how big of an opportunity I had at the beginning of last year. And for those who don't know, I've been although I'm on the elite level of competitors. There's a even top a top tier elite on top of it, and I actually got my big break, the biggest break of my career early last year. where I pinned the current at the time the WWE champion on national television. It was in a non-title match, but I pinned him, and I was basically put in a position where I was supposed to basically skyrocket and hopefully become a household name. Unfortunately, a few weeks after that, it was a series of concussions that I had back to back that pretty much, was very close to ending my career. One concussion happened on television, and I remember talking to myself. I said, I know where I'm at. I think I'm okay. I finished the match. That same night, I had to run back out towards the end of the show, and I got rocked again. And I was like, okay, that's 2 bad hits in a row. I was like, I'll be fine. I then proceeded to go back to work the following week, and I wrestled. I think it was another 3-4 matches. And each night, it just got worse and worse and worse. And on the last night, I got knocked out completely, like blacked out. Somehow still finished the match. I don't know what it was. Someone sent me the footage of it, and I watched it, and you could clearly tell that I'm not there, but I'm there. And I walk backstage, and when you walk backstage, most wrestlers go straight back to the locker room. I walk backstage, I clear the curtain, and for some reason, unbeknownst to me, I start walking, and I just sit down on the ground, Indian style, and I'm just sitting there. And like the referees and the doctors are like, "Hey, buddy, you okay?" And I'm just rocking back and forth. I go, "Yeah, I'm fine. And they go, "Okay, can you stand up for me?" And I knew if I stood up, I was going to fall. And I'm basically trying to hide this injury from them. I go, "Oh no, I'm cool. I'm just going to sit here for a minute." And they're like, "Hey, Adeel, we're not asking you. We're telling you, like, stand up. We need to check you out." And the minute I stood up, I just went face first on the ground. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up. I'm in the trainer's room, and they're trying to wake me up. And I go get some tests done. They have a concussion protocol that they run you through, and I find out that not only did I fail it, I failed it like miserably. And they said, "Hey, we're kind of concerned for your career. This is how bad your concussion is." I ended up going home and doing as much whatever I could do to help rehabilitate it. I'm calling all my friends that are like nutritionists and doctors, and they're saying fish oil and this and that. You have to go in these type of oxygen deprivation tanks, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing everything I could to get better, and I end up getting cleared. But the problem, the reality of the situation is just because I go down doesn't mean the show goes down, right? The show goes on. And what happened was the spot that I had was given to another wrestler by the name of Kofi Kingston. Kofi fills in my spot, has an amazing performance, and deservingly so. This guy has been at it forever, and he's one of the greats. Has an amazing performance, so much so that he rides that success all the way to WrestleMania, where he wins the WWE Championship, the top title that you could win at the biggest show you could win. And as a guy that's injured, you're sitting at home and watching this, and you go, the guy that took your spot is now champion. So now you start wondering, if you didn't get hurt, would that have been you? And WWE is a very weird place. They'll never sit down and say, "Hey, here's the plans for the next 6 months." That's not how the place works, because it's like water. It just keeps moving and adapts. But if you go back and you watch the story, you can clearly see that it was kind of designed for someone like me. And I've had enough people that work at a high level tell me that, like, yeah, that was kind of your spot. Kofi Kingston is an incredible performer, and what happened was fate. It was destined to be him this entire time. I believe that, and he deserves it. But as a performer, man, that is the lowest feeling I've ever had in my life, because to me, my body gave out on me before my heart did. That's what I want. I want to win the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. I want the fans to chant my name and go into a frenzy and buy T-shirts and run after my car when I leave the ring. That's what I want. But instead, I'm sitting at home, with like a tear in my eye, watching WrestleMania as like your spot gets taken. And that's kind of been like the defining moment of my career. Unfortunately, that's how fans like talk about me now. They go, "Oh, it's poor Ali. He messed up. Oh, if Mustafa didn't get hurt, this would happen." Like, that's how. When you bring up my name in the wrestling community, everyone goes back to that story. And I was like, man, I don't want my story to be a tragedy. I've done so much stuff before I got to WWE. I've overcome so much adversity, and I've broken down so many barriers, but I don't want my defining moment or my legacy in WWE to be like, oh, he's the guy that was supposed to be a big star, but he got hurt. And I've been trying to rebound from that injury since then. So, I am back. I am healthy. I am clear. I'll be looking to return back full time soon. Obviously with this pandemic going on, they've cut back a lot on having people come in to travel unnecessarily. So they're trying to operate the show at a bare bones, minimal talent, and it's actually like a great thing. Instead of having 200-300 wrestlers fly in and all congested in a locker room, they're flying in minimal staffing. But my goal and my hopes are that once this pandemic's over, is to come back and to right that wrong, and to pick up where I left off.
Yeah. And that's really that's so wonderful that you made a recovery from that. And I can't imagine how scary that must have been for you. And how does your family handle this? Like when they see that, or when they know that, this is a reality of injuries, these types of injuries that can happen every time you're in the ring?
Not to get too mushy here, but my poor wife, she's seen me pretty banged up, and I don't want people to think like, oh, what a terrible profession. Like no one's putting a gun to my head and making me do this. I have a passion for it, and I have a love for it, and I love performing. But accidents happen, and we have a pretty rough schedule. I remember one tour. We did the Philippines, then we flew to Shanghai, China, then we did Hawaii, all in one weekend.
Whoa!
Just the travel. Yeah, imagine performing, jumping on a bus to the airport, taking a flight, landing, taking a bus to the hotel, maybe sleeping an hour, doing a show, and then just doing that. And then we came back to the States for TV then, and then you have another set of TVs. So sometimes it's the travel that just really breaks you down. Also, my style doesn't help. I do a lot of stunts, a lot of high flying, a lot of dangerous stuff. And my poor wife, sometimes I come home and I just look at her, I was like, I just need to lay down. And I'll take a full day of just, being in bed, just trying to catch up on sleep. My back hurts. And I think I've made her a physical therapist, to be honest with you. She knows how to fix everything. She's popped fingers back into place. She's readjusted my spine for me a few times. Yeah, she's a PT specialist now. But it's got to be hard. It's got to be hard watching your husband kind of deteriorate in front of your eyes sometimes. And she's the one that takes my health very, very seriously. So when I'm having problems, she's the one that says, no, we're going to get a specialist to take a look at it. Or I don't want to say it's a guy mentality, but it's kind of like the performer mentality. Like, oh, I'm fine. I'll just tape it up and take an Advil and I'll be fine. And she'll be like, no. So she's really on me about certain things. Like I was having some back problems, and I was supposed to do like yoga or stretching like every day, and I wouldn't do it. And she would, slap me in the face and be like, go do it. And I would have to go do it.
That seems to be the thing that motivates you more than
nice quick slap in the face. Yeah.
Please, to anybody listening to this, do not walk up and slap me in the face. Please. I don't want that. I don't. But yeah, she's honestly, she's the driving force, man. Anything good that I have in my life right now, I attribute it to her. She's got my back. And I definitely always tell her, I was like, I don't want you to think that I don't notice, or, that I don't see all the stuff that you do. She holds it down, man. It ain't easy with your husband away for 3 weeks.
Sophia Hamada and I are on video, and Sophia's like melting right now as you're talking, by the way.
That's just so sweet.
I gotta stop talking about her, because so I remember this. I don't know if this is risque, but one time one of my friends asked me, he's like, hey, do any he's like, yeah, you got some hot female coworkers. I go, yeah, they're very beautiful young ladies. He goes, do any of them try to hit on you? And I looked at him, I go, no. He's like, why? I was like, because anytime I talk about my wife, they all start melting and they go, oh my God, you're such a sweet guy. I was like, they look at me like a little brother now. And I was like, so yeah, there's no chance of anything ever happening, so don't worry about it.
Well, you
Yeah.
wanted her to know how much you appreciate her. Now it's on the halal gap, so she's
Oh,
obviously gonna hear it. It's gonna be everywhere.
she's more popular than I am. I swear, I'm not kidding you. People like anytime I post a picture of her with me, it gets like quadruple the likes, and I was like, hey, like, what is going on here?
That's awesome.
That's very sweet. Okay, so final question, and then we're gonna do some rapid fire questions, which Skandar can explain. But basically, I just wanted to kind of summarize. So you have, you've talked about how like you gained empathy by being a police officer, how you kind of viewed Bret the Hitman Hart as the good guy, and that was something that was a huge influence on you. Where do you feel like, because you that like is what a lot of what you do, like you. Work to change people's hearts and minds for the better with your wrestling. And so like where did that come from, and like where was the influence from that? Like did it come from family? Did it come from faith? Did it just come from like who you are as a person?
Uh, I couldn't attribute it to one thing. I know it came from me, and obviously I am a result of my environment, right? So it's a little bit of my faith, it's a little bit of my family, it's a little bit of the media that I consumed and the love that I have for wrestling. Um, the it was almost me reacting to the reality of racism. A kid, that was in high school, or sorry, when 9/11 went down, as a kid, I shouldn't have to explain my faith every day I go to school. Like I used to get hammered about it. They go, "Hey, why do your people blow up buildings? Why do they?" And I was so confused by that, and that started to define me. And then that traveled with me into my passion, which was wrestling. I started my wrestling journey, and now once again, I have to explain myself, that I'm not what you see on TV. I'm not the bad guy. And then I make it onto the independent circuit and I fail. And then once again, I have to explain myself. And then all the way to WWE, again, I get presented with it. So it's like, it's almost this reaction. I don't want to say anger, but this, like, I was fed up of having to always claim my innocence, like, oh, I'm not like that. Like, I think it was more of a reaction of anything than always having to be the guy to explain himself. Like I always remember, especially in college, like we had these like, I don't know what class it was, but it was like, that cool college professor that just wants to have the open discussion and be cool with the kids. So we're having some discussion and like, Islam came up in one way or the other. And I remember someone said something derogatory about Islam or, made a statement about it. And everyone in the room kind of like shifted to see what I was going to say because I would, speak up. And I was just so tired of defending it. I just sat there with my arms folded. And I was like, I don't even care now. Like, because I was so beat up, like wrestling, work, college, defending Islam constantly. I was like, why do I have to bear this burden? Why do I have to be? I didn't blow up the building. Why do I have to explain myself? It was almost a reaction. So I feel like that's why I have this innate reaction towards it. Like when someone attacks it, I was like, it speaks to me because it's really defined my childhood and it's kind of seeped into every aspect of my life. When I go out to eat, my wife's hijabi, she doesn't notice a damn thing. I see all of the eyes staring at her. I make her. I shouldn't say I make her. I insist that we sit at a certain table so that she can't see what I see, if that makes sense. Like as a cop, they always train you how to look at the door and you can scan the room for people. So I picked up those skills and I would scan people. I go, okay, I don't like this guy. I don't like how this guy's looking. Okay, you're going to sit here so I can keep my eyes on them. And that's a real reality I face even to this day. So like, to answer your question, it's like, I think I am the way I am because I'm reacting to the way people perceive me. Like I'm fully aware when I walk in the room what some people are thinking and I react accordingly, and I've always said, I've had a few people on Twitter or Instagram, they'll try to take some sort of, offensive cheap shot at me, my religion, or my wife. And I've always made it a point to respond in like a very mature, kind, empathetic way. And I was sitting down, I don't know what outlet it was. They were interviewing me. They go, why do you do that? Like you can easily like just clap back on them or make fun of them. Like, why do you always, he's like, he quoted one. He's like, you call the guy a brother, a same guy that insulted your wife. Like, why did you do that? And I said, because this troll, let's say, he's under the perception that Muslims are evil, barbaric, and uncivilized, right? So if he makes an insult and then I respond to his insult with something uncivilized, barbaric, as far as a response, like I call him, explicitives, and I start name calling him, I go, haven't I just proven his point? But if I go, oh, hey, brother, I understand you have a misconception about what the hijab really means. This is what it actually means. If you want some more information, here's a link. Mm-hmm. So I've responded in a very mature, kind, knowledgeable way. Not only have I defeated his statement, I've also defeated him, because he came in with the perception that, I'm this barbaric, evil Muslim. So I always tell him, I said, I don't understand what I would achieve if I quote unquote clap back at him. Like, what does that accomplish? Nothing. And he was just like dumbfounded by it. He's like, wow, more people should do that. I was like, yeah, I would hope so. Because, if everyone's shouting at each other, like, who's listening? Nobody. We're not accomplishing anything.
Yeah. And have you ever found that hard to like maintain that mature, like cool, calm, collected way of responding?
I do notice that, like, sometimes, like, I'm a human being, like I'm it's very weird for me to talk about it, because most people talk, like, the nickname I have in wrestling is Good Guy Ali. Like, that's what, like, people call me, because I always and it's like, no, but I'm human. Yeah, I get pissed off like everybody else. Like, someone's talking about your wife, like, why would you like smile about that? But at the same time, it's like, okay, this is still an opportunity to educate someone and influence other people. I've had people that have attacked me online message me later saying, I sincerely apologize about my statements. He's like, it's not because the 1,000 fans are like adding me and yelling at me. It's like, I sincerely take back what I said. He's like, I looked up what you said. I feel terrible about it. Will you accept my apology? And it's a sincere apology. And I was like, oh, like, just that one person, it was worth it then. But yeah, I am a human being, and I get mad and I get frustrated. And the best thing to do is when you're mad, just give it time, So I won't respond to something. I'll just close my phone for the day and I'll put it away. I'm very bad. And friends, this is why I don't get back to your text messages. Sometimes they don't believe me. They don't believe me. I know everyone always has their phone on them, but like, it's so time consuming. Sometimes I just gotta hide it. I just go back in my room and I put it in the drawer and I close it. I think, what if it's an emergency? I was like, well, call my wife. It's fine.
It's true. We got to disconnect every once in a while.
Once in a while, man. I want to challenge everyone. Go put your phone away for an hour after you listen to the podcast.
No, of course. Oh, it helps. I started doing that since, like, I'm not big on New Year's resolutions, but I had one this year that I stuck with, and that was not plugging my phone in beside my bed. I honestly think it saves me like an hour a day. It's literally the worst thing. But
also, you won't get brain cancer, according to my sister. So.
Oh, there you go. Added benefit. Okay, before we wrap, we have 6 rapid fire questions. Are you down with this?
I'm not a rapid fire person, but I will try.
Okay. The first thing that comes into your mind, there's no right or wrong answers, just literally whatever comes to your mind. Got it?
All right.
All right, let's do this. Okay, number 1. Who would play you in a movie?
Keanu Reeves.
Yes. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
That was the perfect answer. Okay, Stone Cold Steve Austin or Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Oh, come on, The Rock all day.
Amazing. Winter or summer?
Winter all day. Winter. Yeah, I said it.
Okay, I like it.
Favorite type of potato?
None.
Oh, my man! We're soulmates. We are soulmates.
It's finally happened.
It's finally happened.
No one desires the potato. It just shows up on your plate, and you're like, "Oh, I'll take this potato because it's here." No one orders a potato.
I am like keeping this clip and framing it on a wall somehow.
I don't know if we can release this episode anymore. I'm really
yeah, Martha just chimed in from the darkness.
But like fries, like tater tots, man.
Look at his body. You think he's eating fries? Okay. Next question. Most binge-worthy show we can stream right now.
Oh, my favorite show ever is This Is Us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't care what anyone says, dude. It's an amazing show.
It is.
Nice.
Okay, and lastly, your most rewatched movie ever in your life?
Oh, man, I grew up as a big Muhammad Ali fan, so the Will Smith adaptation movie, Ali, is unbelievable. I think I've watched it close to 100 times.
Wow.
Very on brand. Very good
Amazing.
choice.
Adeel, thank you so much for your time, man. We really appreciate you taking or giving us the opportunity to learn more about your journey. This was incredible, very, very insightful. And
Where can we find you?
All my social media is Twitter and Instagram. It's at Ali WWE. I do have a TikTok, but TikTok is dumb now, so I won't be using it anymore. So
it's already come and gone.
But I'm not going to post anything. But yeah, Twitter and Instagram at Ali WWE.
Okay, amazing.
Awesome.
All right, thank you again so much.
It was my pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed that episode. You can find us online by searching Mosquers Film Festival on all social media platforms. We'll see you next time. We don't see each other. I don't know what to
We'll talk to you next time.
In your ear. We will be here next week.